Hello, Rejoice family, and those beyond our Rejoice family. Thank you for watching. And I'm going to start, instead of starting with our scripture today, I'm going to start with a question. That question is simply, where are you at this point? So I'll share where I'm at. When we were having to make decisions almost 2.5 weeks ago of, you know, do we continue doing services here in place? Do we begin to move online? Um, you know, that really the first week where we were under this stay in place, um, I was in the movement of just doing, of keeping things going, of trying to transition everything as much as possible from the way we normally do things to transitioning things online. And so there was uh, a lot of excitement and lot of anxiousness and everything else going on in that time. But there was that sense of, okay, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I need to do right now. And last week was very much a week of kind of settling in and beginning to realize this is going to be a longer um, a longer transition than what I initially realized. And so I began thinking about, well, okay, well, what would it look like to have to move our services online for Holy Week and things like that. Began sketching out some initial plans, began trying to put some things in place for that. And again, for those first 2 weeks, there was a lot of motion. And this is a week where I'm a week, 2 weeks out from Easter. I know Holy Week's coming. We've made put a lot of things in place. But I'll be honest with you that today I'm tired. And today is really probably one of the first times that the magnitude of what we as people, as what we as individuals, what we as a nation are going through right now. Um, Again, the first couple of weeks for me were very much this adjust to the reality. But I really had not had that time to really sit and come to grips with what was going on. And while I talked a little bit about last week about, accepting and naming what it is that you're grieving about, this is really kind of that point where I'm at today. And the reason I bring this up, and the reason I want to talk about this as part of our reflection today, is if that's where you're at, I want you to know that that's not only okay, that's normal, and there is a scriptural basis for this. So we don't talk a lot about uh, a significant portion of the scripture, which I think we do to our detriment. I think too often people think of being Christian is we got to portray that we're always happy, that we're always upbeat about everything, that we're always positive about everything. And that would neglect within both the Old Testament and the New Testament this long tradition of lament. The Psalms, there are more lament Psalms than any other particular type of Psalm. Now, granted, that depends on how you categorize things, but the way I categorize things, there's a lot of lament songs. The book of Jeremiah, which is the longest book in the Bible by just number of words, is predominantly a lamenting prophet. Many of the prophets have significant portions of lament. I mean, you have Isaiah, which has both lament and hope. Ezekiel is mainly lament. Many of the minor prophets, called minor because they're smaller, are predominantly in times where the people have not listened and things are going on around them. One of the books in the Bible that's in with the prophets is it's part of the works attributed to Jeremiah, is a book called Lamentations. And I'm going to read from that in just a minute. But I think we need to be able to understand that it's okay that when things are not the way that we think they should be, or when things are not going the way that we will want, that there is language in Scripture that helps us take that to God. I think we sometimes go to Scripture for, give me the answer to make it all better. But sometimes what Scripture gives us is the words to express the hurt, the pain, the reality that we may be going through at a time. So I'm going to read just a couple verses. This is just the first couple verses of the book of Lamentations. So Lamentations is 5 chapters long. Each chapter is 22 verses. There's 22 verses because there's 22 letters of the Bible, and this poem is written where each verse begins with a different letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So this is Lamentations is written when Jerusalem has been conquered and the people are in exile. So that's where the language comes from. But I think it resonates today. So this is from chapter 1. How lonely sits the city that once was full of people. How like a widow she has become, she that was great among the nations. She that was a princess among the provinces has become a vassal. She weeps bitterly in the night, with tears on her cheeks. Among all her lovers she has no one to comfort her. All her friends have dealt treacherously with her. They have become her enemies. Now I know this may not be a real uplifting message today, but I hope that you can, if that's what you're looking for, I hope that you can stop and come back to this at a time when you need words, because we aren't always going to need words that are just going to uplift us and pick us up. Sometimes we need someone who can speak truth, who can understand that, I don't feel joyful today. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. I want things to go back, at least mostly, to the way they were. And it doesn't make me a bad or evil or uncaring person. I don't wish for anybody to go through a crisis like this. I don't wish for healthcare workers or our leaders, from the president to governors to mayors to independent school district workers. I don't wish for anybody to go through this. I don't wish for the challenges caused for families and for people with their jobs and all those type of things. There are many things that we could critique about the way that things have been, but I think it's also okay to grieve. It's also okay to lament. It's also okay to call into this tradition and say, God, here's where I am today. And so wherever you may be, you continue to remain in my prayers. I continue to try and do what I can to, provide what wisdom I can from Scripture, from our tradition, as we walk through this together. I continue to try and find ways for us to be connected, and again, I'm open to other ideas of how we do this. But know that you are in my thoughts, in my heart, and I wish you all the best as we continue to try and stay safe and stay connected.